There are a lot of ways to tell a story in visual media. Color, sound design, music, and many more elements are at your disposal to make something creative. Although some directors will have to explicitly tell you story elements rather than finding more creative ways to give you something to grasp on.
Oh, what would Mom and Dad say?
I don't know. They're gone. They died when I was 3, remember?
At that point, you may as well be listening to a podcast. However, some of the most talented directors, writers, and musicians have found effective ways to tell a story without talking your ears off. Visual storytelling's most basic principle is show, don't tell. Instead of a character telling you how they're feeling,
He doesn't love us anymore. That's sad.
why not show it? The art in my favorite comic, The Boxer, by Jung Ji-hoon, is a great example of that. Ji-hoon does a great job of exaggerating the emotion of scenes with these incredible illustrations. One of the most famous recent examples of visual storytelling is this scene in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles jumps from the building in a leap of faith. Phil Lord, the writer of Spider-Verse, writes this: Miles walks to the edge of the roof and leaps. Miles isn't falling through frame, he's rising. That's fantastic visual storytelling. Just like the upside down shot in Spider-Verse, the way you angle the camera at the subject can completely change how you see them, and not just literally. Looking up at a person makes them seem imposing, looking down on a character makes them seem weak, and tilting the camera causes unease. Before planning what's going to be in front of the camera, sometimes it's better to first plan what the camera itself is doing. Things shouldn't be shown if they aren't going to be important later. This principle is called Chekhov's gun. Don't make a big deal about something on screen if it's not giving useful information or foreshadowing something for later. In Spirited Away, as Chihiro approaches the bathhouse, 3 additional shots are briefly shown: the chimney, the waterfall, and the rustling balcony, representing the 3 main locations in her journey to save her parents. A more recent example is the carpet lifting tool that the Riddler uses as a murder weapon in the beginning of the film. We'd come to find out that the final puzzle the Riddler leaves for Batman involves this piece of evidence. Never make something seem important if you aren't going to bring it up again. Depending on how color is used, it can drastically change much more than just the mood of a film. But let's just start with simple emotion. In some of Wes Anderson's works, like The Grand Budapest Hotel or Fantastic Mr. Fox, the colors are bright, mostly pastel, inoffensive color palettes with no harsh shadows. It tells the watcher to not take the movie too seriously.
I don't know what sort of cream they've put on you down at the morgue, but I want some.
In La La Land, the bright, vibrant colors give a feeling of warmth or even nostalgia. And in The Batman, the colors are harsh, dark, and either lean toward orange, blue, or red, invoking a feeling of grimness or even danger. And sometimes, color itself can be used to tell a story. In The Matrix, while the screen is bathed in green, it tells us that they're in the Matrix, compared to the more realistic coloring in the real world. And maybe the simplest but most effective is Star Wars, easily showing who's good and who's bad. The color of clothes can be used to tell a story too. In the film Megamind, Roxanne Ritchie's clothes tell part of her story. At the beginning of the film, her dress is bright red, showing her full support for Metro Man. In the middle, while she's conflicted, her dress is purple. And at the end, when she fully supports Megamind, her dress is bright blue. In Baby Driver, Baby's clothes represent his current situation. He wears a white shirt and a black jacket, symbolizing he's a nice guy working in a dark world.
He's a good kid and devil behind the wheel. What the hell else more do you need to know?
When he's taking care of his deaf foster parent, he only wears white, no conflict whatsoever. And near the end, when he's fully wrapped up in these crimes, his shirt is gray, showing that his morals have entered a gray area as well.
I shot Buddy.
Sound design is a great tone setter. Sound can make something funny, impactful, or just melt away in the background. In Baby Driver, nearly every scene that isn't scored by whatever Baby is listening to, you can hear a high-pitched ringing noise, giving clues to Baby's tinnitus before it's even explicitly told in the film. But one of the most unique sound design works is in The Wind Rises. The Wind Rises is the only Studio Ghibli film to be based off a real person, Jiro Horikoshi. Yet much of the sound design is made by the human mouth. Why would they use such an unrealistic method of sound design when working with a real human character? It's used to show Jiro's childlike imagination, and it almost feels like someone's telling you a story and making the sound themselves. And it works perfectly in context. One of the most powerful methods of storytelling is music. The music can set the mood for any scene, happy, sad, or even a lack thereof, can make a scene hit harder. One of the best ways to use music in storytelling is the leitmotif, a short phrase that can be used pretty much anywhere. These short phrases are often used to represent characters or places. For example, whenever the Sith appear in Star Wars, this theme you probably know starts playing. Leitmotifs are very useful. In fact, I've been using them this whole video. Every time a title card has appeared, this motif played. Since you've heard it a few times already, your brain associates it with a new title card. These are so effective that I can probably play a short melody like this, and you'll immediately recognize it as Mario. There's a great video about Spider-Verse by the YouTube channel Sideways that shows off really well how you could almost fully understand Miles' character development through the music alone. And finally, diegetic music. Diegetic music is music that exists within the world of the movie. In the intro sequence to Spider-Verse, we can hear Miles listening to a song. That's diegetic. In The Truman Show, where Truman is reunited with his father, we find that the entire piece of music playing over top is diegetic. This completely changes the tone for the whole scene. If the music only existed for us, and not those inside the universe, the scene would be much more emotional. But as we see it played by the musicians within the show, we see this emotion is entirely fabricated by the director. And finally, in Baby Driver, nearly every song played is something that Baby is listening to. These songs are great mood setters, but some are just right on the nose. Now, you don't need to use all these methods. Heck, you don't need to use any of them. There are countless ways to tell a story without words, and I only scratched the surface. Acting, lighting, composition, exaggeration, and so many more can be utilized as a story element, used to convey an emotion, or simply make the movie better. I just think that if you can find ways to tell a story without speaking it, then there will almost always be something new to see every time you come back to watch.